Welcome to the Reconnected podcast, a home for sharing, understanding, and growth for the retail grocery store industry. During each episode, we will meet an amazing member of our community as we learn about their story and jointly explore the intricacies and challenges of our supply chain. Through it all, we'll remember and honor that everything starts with the real people who spend so much of their lives supporting the retail food supply chain. We will bring together the voices of manufacturers, distributors, and retailers as we journey together to help our industry reconnect. My name is Luke Abbott, and I'm excited to have you join us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reconnected podcast, where today I'm joined by the illustrious Jenny Yu from Three Trees, someone who I've known, who's been really, truly one of my most amazing friends who I don't talk to enough. And so the only way to talk to you is to get you into my podcast. Three Trees and Jenny were one of my first clients when I started Be Driven 4 or 5 years ago. And the way that you run a company and how you built your company are amazing to me, and really in the top 1 to 2% in terms of CEOs and how you've shown up in growing your company. So I thought we'd have you come on here and spill all of your secrets to the industry so that they can all copy you. How does that feel?
Thank you, Luke. First, it's a real pleasure to be here. Yeah, your words are too kind. Yeah, being on a podcast is special. Especially we will talk to you, like an old friend. Like I was saying, I've spent 0 minutes preparing for this. So
there's no prep needed. I just need you and your mind and mouth. How's helpful? And so we can dig in. We made the time. You're one of the busiest people I know as well. But I thought maybe it'd be good to open up with maybe 2-3 minutes of kind of your story, like at a very high level. How did you get here? And then we can kind of dig in from there.
Great. Yeah, I've always had a interest, love of like food and consumer packaged goods brands. So after business school, I worked for a company called Wallaby Yogurt, and that's where I kind of got, experience working in the natural foods industry. Then years later, many years later, because in between I went off and did some other things, but decided to start my own business. And I saw an opportunity with plant-based milks to do something clean and more like nutrient dense, more nourishing. This was about 2011, 2012. So there wasn't really anything like that on the market. And I went about just, thinking I'd put out a product, test it, iterate, sell it. And I gave very little to zero thought to fundraising. And so I started a commercial kitchen. I bought a refrigerated van with like 500,000 miles on it for $5,000. So that was how I got started. And then just like one foot in front of the other. And then, then I kind of started looking around and realized, wow, like everyone's raised money and like you kind of have to be in this industry. So then I thought, okay, well, maybe I should talk to some investors. And I had a few conversations, but none of them went anywhere really. I think because, fundraising really is, like they say, a full-time job. So it never happened. And, just kept going. And then years after that, I realized that, hey, maybe, it's actually better to build a business the way I've been building it. So, we're about 10, 11 years in where we have national distribution, but, still, because we haven't raised money, the growth has been more focused and more like slow and steady. So that's where we are.
Which is beautiful. By the way, everyone for the most part has your religion now. It's like there was this drug called VC money that was very democratized, and so many companies that maybe shouldn't have had access got access, and then that drug got pulled away from so many companies. And I have seen the graveyard of brands so much over the last 2 years. It's been so sad. And I think about you and how you did it and how fastidious you were about profitability and smart growth and, being profitable. And it's just, you are the the zenith of what brands want to be today, frankly.
Very kind. Thank
And
you.
yeah, and I'm curious. So Three Trees, you started in 2011, very humble beginnings. And what was your inspiration to do this? Like, why would you go into this? I know Wallaby, you had some CPG experience, but this is the whole nother level, starting your own company.
Yeah, I think it's always been a dream in the back of my mind to have my own business. I think we do draw a lot of inspiration from our family members, and I'm no exception. So my dad was always like a small business owner. Like, he built two businesses, and they're small businesses, like under 20 employee types,
Hmm.
but profitable. And so I always thought growing up, like, yeah, this would be a great way to make a living. Sort of, I saw how like work and like his work and personal life kind of blended together, and that was appealing to me actually. Like, you know, like what he enjoyed doing was his work, and so that
Yeah.
was like a very sort of naturally big part of his life. And it wasn't like just a job to get a paycheck. So I
Do
like
you,
that, and
do you,
I
by the way,
thought,
do you have a little one that really wants to talk to you? Why do we?
yeah, I
Who
know.
is this? Is this Zoe?
No, it's Forrest. I have two now.
Oh my gosh. Should we let Forrest in? I think Forrest could be a part of this if you're okay with it.
Well, it's a podcast, so you can't see. Well, our nanny has taken him away. So
Okay, okay, poor Forrest. He
yeah,
sounds so
it is also
devastated.
it is hard running a business with two children like under five. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah, but you do it. You do it. I remember it was during COVID, I believe, when you had Zoe, right? Your first, and is that
yeah,
right? When was she born? What year?
yeah. She was born in 2019. So yeah, she was about 1.5 when COVID happened.
Yeah, I remember her being on your desk in presentations with
Oh,
buyers,
so
and
rough.
she was like the mascot for the company. How old is she now? She's
She's
5?
Yeah, she's over 5.5.
Wow, it's
Crazy.
amazing how fast they grow up. Okay, so
Yeah,
I also remember something about your grandmother and back in
yeah,
Taiwan as well. Was she part of the inspiration?
yeah. My grandmother's more of a like a brand essence kind of inspiration, I guess. The way. So I'm from Taiwan originally, and in Asian society back then, like very few women were like independent, and she worked and raised five kids on her own. So she always had a really independent spirit, and she was also very athletic, which was rare for women in Asia back then. Anyway, so she used to take me on hikes like in the mountains in Taiwan, and foraging was like sort of a bigger, like a lot of people foraged for food.
Hmm.
Like it wasn't like hip like it is now. It's just kind of like what people knowledge that people knew, like, oh, this leaf is edible, this berry is edible. So I remember that. And so the idea of like making a line of clean plant-based foods that sort of takes nourishment directly from nature and keeps it whole and as
Hmm.
nourishing as possible, I felt was very like in line with my vision and her food philosophy. And so yeah, so she's an inspiration in terms of like how we approach food. This like, and I like to
Hmm.
say like grandma's philosophy to food as opposed to like a food scientist's approach to food.
Hmm.
There's room for both and everything on in between on the spectrum. But that's just like our philosophy. It helps us stay focused in what we do.
Hmm.
So yeah, so it's kind of a nod to my grandmother. And the name Three Trees is made up of three of the characters for wood in Chinese. So like
Hmm.
three trees. I mean, sorry, the character for forest is made up of
For
three
Forest. Okay.
wood. Yeah. So three trees or wood, makes up the forest, and the forest being like an abundant source for clean, nourishing, plant-based foods, ingredients, was like, yeah, perfect for my vision brand.
Wow, that's awesome. I remember hearing these stories when you and I were working together more closely, but it's amazing how much inspiration that you received from your grandmother, like even like the name and referring back to those hikes and then your dad growing up. It's cool. Was there anybody else who was a mentor to you along the way, like before or maybe at the beginning of starting Three Trees?
Um, yeah, I mean, certainly there's a lot of people, colleagues, professors, friends, but I think, those two are probably the biggest influence.
Okay. Okay. And so tell me about the first farmers market you went to. Is that where you first sold the product?
Yeah, initially farmers market, and then a couple of independents here in the Bay Area, independent, retailers. So, started working out of a commercial kitchen in Oakland, and I was living in
Mm-hmm.
Emeryville in the East Bay, the Bay Area at the time. And then
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of the first farmers markets was in Berkeley. So yeah, just kind of, set up a table and, I started looking back, it's sort of like I naively just thought, hey, let's just, give it a go, right? Like, let's put this in front of people. Let's see if people
Yeah.
are looking for it. And I think to start any business, you have to have some sort of like ignorant, like, wisdom, like,
Yeah.
like I knew nothing about, the UNFIs of the world. I knew nothing about chargebacks and trade spend and I don't know, promotional planning, etc., or like margins even. So just kind of, like I said, one foot in front of the other, and you figure it out as you go along. Um, obviously, experience would have been really helpful. If you have experience, that's great. But yeah, so starting a business, you kind of just, you have
Well, you had fresh eyes.
yeah, you have an idea and you believe in it, and you're just
Mhm.
like, and then some people like it, and you're very encouraged by it, and you keep going. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how much was the product at the beginning, like the retail was it at the farmer's
Oh
market?
yeah, it was a good question. It was like really small. Well, I had like a 12-ounce size, I think. I probably sold it for like 5.99.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly, but it was definitely expensive. It was all handmade, small batch in a commercial kitchen, and it was not pasteurized. It was just like this like ultra fresh product. Fresh equals perishable. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just like you make at home, with a
Yeah.
blender in your kitchen. Very tasty, but also spoils real quick.
What was the shelf life at the beginning?
I was like, it was really like if you make it at home, you would know that you get around 3 days if you're not like sanitizing
Wow.
your kitchen really well. But I sanitize all my wares really well, so I was able to get like 10
Wow.
off of 10 days.
Wow. And what was the point in which you said, I need to go like truly commercialize this and bring it to market? What was the point where you said, I have something here?
Yeah, so I always from day one, from even like before the farmers market, I had the ambition to be a national brand. So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't so much like I was like, oh, let me do this for fun on the weekends, and then it went somewhere, and I thought about becoming a national brand. No, I set out like wanting to build
The
a
vision.
national brand. Yeah, so I knew like this wouldn't you can't take a product national with 10-day shelf life, and I just figured like, okay, once I get enough scale, enough volume, then potentially I could take it to a like a line, a co-packer. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so again, it was not like I had a whole business plan written out. I don't know, just kind of had this idea that, and then just I was excited about it. I felt like there was an opportunity, and the sales were encouraging. People's response to it was encouraging, including like buyers at a couple of stores in the Bay Area, like called Rainbow Co-op,
Mm-hmm.
wonderful vegetarian co-op in San Francisco, and Buy
Right,
Right
right.
Market
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got started.
Well, and I'm wondering, was there a chance you took on that first run? Because I imagine, understanding your product, it's not small runs. Did you already
Yeah,
have customers for all the product at the time you purchased that first run?
you know, I actually sort of did. So
No,
this,
cool.
yeah, this is rare because it took time. Because, well, it wasn't just so it went from me in a commercial kitchen to like a crew of I don't know, almost 10 people in a commercial kitchen, right? So we really took it as far as
Yeah.
we could in a commercial kitchen. So we were in about 30 stores in the Bay Area
Okay.
before we went to a co-packer, and the co-packer was able to extend the shelf life like really, by orders of magnitude. And so then I could just like make a really big run for me, like doing
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, 2, 3 months worth of product
Mm-hmm.
in one run. And that was like just hitting their minimum. And I think honestly, there was a bit of, um, when you're starting out and you're small, you kind of have to convince people to give you a chance, right? So
Yeah.
it's definitely a degree of like, you know, yeah, like selling your idea and presenting yourself and, you know, to the co packer partner, right, to get
Hmm.
you excited about the idea, to give you a chance, because yeah, they'd rather you were like a huge customer from day one, right?
Right.
But yeah, you make them.
They just see your vision, hopefully, and believe in you, what you're doing. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And as you, so you kind of grew Bay Area first, and then was there like a regional launch into like a more a larger retail like Whole Foods, or how did that go?
Yeah, first it was Bay Area, and then I think I just sort of, I'm trying to think. I went to SoCal and Pacific Northwest next.
Okay.
And then, yeah, and I'm trying to remember why or how. I think I knew that there, maybe a friend mentioned there's some stores that would be really ideal for my product,
Hmm.
like PCC up in
Yes.
the West, right? PCC.
You have a really good relationship with Noah and the team there. That
Yeah,
was a really good
yeah.
one.
Yeah, and it was, just me knocking on their door. They gave me the opportunity. Yeah, so, honestly, I'm like very grateful to the independents. Without them, I think
Mm.
it's much harder for entrepreneurs and innovation, unless you're an entrepreneur backed by like, with a lot of money. Yeah, for like true entrepreneurs. I mean, anyway, you know what I mean.
I
Bootstrapping.
got you.
Um, so let's see. So, and then I remember we were pulled into the East Coast. Um, I think I was doing like a Expo West at a tabletop,
Yeah.
and Albert's Fresh Produce, they were like, oh, we're looking for products just like this. And so, I didn't, it was like basically, I didn't push for it, but it happened. And so I went for it.
Hmm.
Um, so you have to evaluate the opportunities. Like I was very weary of like, wary of expanding too much, like over expansion, right? Like
Hmm.
into too many regions. I knew that you needed to like it's better to be successful in a region,
Yep.
one small region, than to be everywhere, but then kind of like, dilute your efforts and resources that way. But at the same time, they had customers that, they were ready to bring me in, and I was able to get term prices and stuff that were
Mhm.
okay. And so I did that. So that helped as well.
Nice. So during this phase, I imagine Malk is like the probably your biggest competitor in the market. What was your why would they choose you, right, to add you into this? Were you differentiated enough? Was it packaging? Was it ingredient profile? Was it you? Was
Yeah,
it all?
honestly, back at that time when, I don't know, this is probably around 2018, 19, like, honestly, back then, I think we were very similar in size and
Okay.
also like our stories. I think Three Trees started a little bit before Mohawk, but around the same time, and so I think it was just a matter of like who, got to a market first, or and then a lot of stores carried both. And I mean, the products were a little different, but we both, our main selling points were both organic and clean. Um, so yeah, so there was a lot of similarities. I think we have since then differentiated more, but at the
Hmm.
time we were pretty similar, and it was just sort of like, this was like a product that people were looking for, right? They were looking
Hmm.
for better for you plant-based milks. So there's just a lot of opportunity for everyone.
And you validated each other too, in a way, right? The fact that there was this like new premium area, right?
Mhm,
In fact, this third wave of plant-based milk that
mhm.
you guys were kind of co-creating, and there's only one. Okay, well, it's kind of interesting, might be a novelty, but when there's two, I think is it fair to say consumers and go, hey, maybe there's something here I want to investigate and look at more.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And we've always been like a dollar more than Malk on shelf.
Yeah.
I think certainly, like that probably, yeah, like we're sort of now like just being the only one that's much more expensive than everyone.
Hmm.
Like you're right, it might sort of create this. It's like, oh, this is one outlier, but now there's two, and so it's like,
Hmm.
oh, these two must be more expensive for some reason, and
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think it was helpful.
Yeah, and what always got me when during our time working closely together was the like just how profoundly different and how many more nuts there were in your product. Like the almond milk typically had, I think, 5 times more nuts than some of the bigger competitors, right? And
Yeah.
it's absurd how much more not why not just go double or triple? Why was it like 5 times?
It was, I haven't changed my recipe from the commercial kitchen days,
Hmm.
really. So I don't know. I think started with that recipe and just kind of stuck to it. And then it became like, oh, we want to hit, a certain amount of like protein level and nourishment and the creaminess and
Mm.
mouthfeel. Yeah, so we've always just used like a lot of organic almonds in our almond milk.
Yeah. And also curious about the black sesame
Mm.
SKU that I believe is still in the market. It's still in the market still, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's like I always called that the adult chocolate milk,
Uh-huh.
and I know that was one that was always close to your heart. And I'm curious to bring that to market in an area where you often see like the quote unquote white milks is so common, and then this is like a whole nother level of specialty. I'm curious what your thoughts were on that SKU because it feels like a cult favorite type of product that you've been able to create.
I think that's what it's become now, fortunately or unfortunately. This is where like, when you don't have investors to answer to,
Yeah.
you're gonna get more creative, you kind of run with your vision. And then when you're smaller, taking a risk like that isn't like as big a deal. It's almost
Hmm.
like take more risks, right?
Yeah.
So this is a SKU that was definitely like a personal, like you were saying, close to my heart. Like it's personal, like something I like, and definitely, comes from my heritage, the Asian.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Asian cultures use black sesame. It's a very healthy seed. Sesame, especially black sesame, is quite high in calcium,
Mm.
and supposedly they believe it's good for your hair. So yeah, any nuts and seeds are in their pure forms are very, very healthful. So it tastes really good, has a really distinctive flavor. And so I just launched it and, people really like it. And when we demo, even to, non-Asian audience, people love it. So they have to like try
Mm.
it. They love it. But then it tends to struggle on shelf without demos because people are like, wait, why? What? I've never heard of like sesame milk, little black sesame
Hmm.
gray, and so yeah, it's like you said, it's become like a cult one. But it's definitely something where you can get more innovative when you're not trying to like, okay, this item has to sell, hit some
Yep.
hurdle, right? Hit some target that like investors have put in front of you or whatever.
Yeah.
You can just be creative and sort of be more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful to me because as someone who's worked very closely with you for a number of years, it's there's like two sides of Jenny. There's like the Jenny who's like a really, really good business person who knows how to run a profitable company in the CPG space, which is like unheard of for a startup in this in a natural space. And then there's the Jenny that's like, let's take a risk on this. And it's like there's a balance there. And I'm curious how you reconcile that because at the end of the day, like, while you don't have investors and you can take risks, you also you have this ethos. So we have to run a sustainable company. And how does that work in your brain?
Yeah. Gosh, that's a good question. I'm not sure there is a method, like if there's some methodology that I use here. I think I always, you hear like growing up, hearing about my dad's business, you'll hear him talk about certain like decisions or in certain situations. And, businesses do require investment. You are taking
Hmm.
a risk. And of course, you try to, mitigate the risks or like make decisions that
Hmm.
will hopefully have good outcomes. So yeah, so we try to be data driven and everything. I think here sometimes it's like you don't know until you try,
Hmm.
and again, like
Yeah.
when you're smaller, yeah, you don't need to have success in all of your thousands of stores.
Right. Right.
But now, honestly, now not that we're much bigger, we're still like a 9-person team, but now when we launch something, we're much more cautious than back then.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, it goes hand in hand with being bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, and the next launch I remember or the first launch I remember doing together with a new SKU was oat and seed,
Yeah.
and that was back in the days when like oat milk was on fire, like it was just
Mhm.
crazy what was going on, and
Yeah.
then you take your own approach and you say, hey, let's add seeds to this, and which was no one had done like that. It was groundbreaking, and I'm curious now, probably 3 years later, is it about 3 or 4 years later now.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Tell me about that decision, and was it right to kind of go your own way in the kind of the oat space?
Yeah, honestly, well, let's see. So yeah, so we saw, of course, the popularity of oat, and we looked at what was popular in the market, and we were like, okay, is this something that fits with our food philosophy? And
Mm,
we kind of felt like, not really. There's all these additives, and same thing, right? Like with the original initial set of plant-based, like almond milks or soy milks or whatever, they weren't that clean. And so we're like, well, we got to make a clean product. But then there's a challenge of like, how do you get the richness that you want in the milk if without adding like vegetable oil, essentially?
mm,
So we thought, okay, how about from seeds? And we also thought, because a lot of people were like, well, I can't have almonds or nuts because of allergens. So we thought, what if we made an allergen-free oat milk, so instead of getting the richness and mouthfeel from vegetable oil, you get it from seeds, right? Because
yeah.
seeds, nuts are high in oil,
Yep.
but like good fat, good heart healthy fat. So that was our approach, and then we also sort of got really there's good receptivity from retailers. So because the business was built over time, you start to have these relationships with retail buyers.
Mm,
So
yep.
we could very easily like go to them and get their input, and they were they really like that concept. So we
Yeah.
decided to launch it. This is where like, and the product's doing fine, but it's not
Hmm.
like a bestseller.
Hmm.
I think this is where it can be, like consumers to an extent. I think basically we're appealing to the consumer who wants to eat healthy,
Hmm.
and not to the consumer that just cares about, taste above all
Hmm.
else. And so that's our challenge. And so it's kind of like, in a way, we're constrained by that, right? We're constrained by
Yeah.
our food philosophy, by our mission, by our
Hmm.
principle, by our like commitment to what we believe is quality, right? And health.
Yeah. It's like they're guardrails on you. Yes.
Yeah. And so we're kind of like not able to pursue these, like these kinds of opportunities. But it helps us stay focused too. It's like
Yeah.
good and bad. So that's, our mission is to delight and nourish the world with the most clean and delicious plant-based foods. So if
And
you
you
think
do.
about that, it has to be, yeah, it has to be nourishing, has to be clean, has to be delicious, and of course plant-based.
Mm.
So we can't chase every shiny object. Like we just have to,
Yeah,
yeah.
which is actually really nice because then
Mhm.
it's more, I think it's more important what we say no to in some ways, what we say yes to, and it really then gives you, like, ideally there's only one path forward, and then it's like it's simple, like I know what I need to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't to your point, I can't follow the shiny object, but that's okay. The shiny objects don't last long, often, like shooting stars, right?
Yeah. So I think having that
Yeah,
clear vision for what we're about helps guide our
yeah.
product innovation.
Yeah, and so predicate speaking of innovation a bit more, like you've had a recent launch, and I'm curious about that. And I think it's a creamer, correct?
No, we launched a barista milk. Yeah.
Barista milk. That's right. Okay, so what does that mean? When I hear barista milk, I think creamer, but I'm wrong. What does that mean?
No, you're not wrong. Honestly, you can put whatever as creamer in your coffee, right? A lot of people just put milk as their
Okay.
creamer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think if you study the category as it is right now, creamers tend to be actually the really sweet, thick,
Yeah.
sweet stuff. But the reality, it's funny, we talk to consumers, we're like, do you use creamer? They're like, yes. And then we're like, what do you use for creamer? It turns out they just use their whatever milk, So
Yeah.
it's not that clear in consumers' minds. Yeah, so you're right. So basically, any of our milks can be used as creamer. Our barista can be used as a creamer. But the barista is supposed to be designed to foam and froth well
Hmm.
and work with coffee and tea really well. And for dairy milk, this is not a problem. Cow milk is the original, the OG of barista milk. Um,
Yes.
but with plant-based, without adding like stabilizers and emulsifiers and certain things, it's the plant-based milk naturally separates when it hits acidity, like coffee, which is an acidic environment. And so we're like, okay, how do we make a barista milk that's still clean, right? Again, like
Mm-hmm.
everything has to be clean, has to be with ingredients that you find in your kitchen pantry. So Jed, our R&D, amazing R&D person, yeah, I actually met him back in Wallaby. So this is where, your
Oh,
experience,
wow.
yeah, your
Yeah.
experience at network really, I tell young entrepreneurs like, or young aspiring entrepreneurs to go into an area that they're interested in because
Mm-hmm.
you don't know the contacts you'll make and the, experiences you'll have that can be helpful for what you decide to do later on. But if it's in a totally different industry, then the chances of that are a lot lower. Anyway, so yeah,
Right.
so Jed, who was amazing, developed this our barista milk, which takes basically what makes a lot of barista milks taste good is that it has a bit of sweetness from oats. So oat milk tends to
Mm-hmm.
taste a little sweeter, and then takes the fat, not from vegetable oil, again, has to be clean, but just from almonds, which source of fat, right? Source of richness,
Mm-hmm.
mouthfeel. Um, and then he added a little bit of baking soda, which is
Okay.
more pH like basic to counter the acidity of coffee.
Okay.
Yeah, so quite
Oh,
simple, but
brilliant.
yeah, brilliant. So yeah, our barista milk is awesome. It performs like, if you foam it, froth it, put in coffee, it's great. And actually really tastes good just by itself. So a lot of my
Mm-hmm.
friends are like, we just use this for everything. And it's great because it's, clean ingredient. You've got almond, oat, and some baking soda.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And I'm continuing on. Like, I know you have a recent addition to your team, um, Parker, which
Yeah.
is amazing. Um, but I'm curious to be going back in time to the partnership you had with Whole Foods and how important that was to you, and really the partnership you had with Parker Brody when he was the category
Mhm.
manager for
Yeah.
dairy. When did you first meet him? What were your first regions, and how did that go?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about because I probably met him in 2018,
Hmm.
17, 18, I don't know, quite
I think he
early
was
on.
new. I think he was new at the time at the desk.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
potentially. And met him I met him through, another industry friend, Min Sai of Hodo,
Yep. Yep.
uh, who has been like a friend and mentor. But anyway, so we were introduced and, he was my category buyer. So we started working together and, your Whole Foods buyer. This is like, someone you like prepare for hours for like a 15-minute
Yes.
call with, right? Or days rather.
Yes.
Yeah, but anyway, so it's been like a partnership over the years, right? Because
Hmm.
we'd have our category review once or twice a year, and that's about like as often as we talk live. Then it's like emails and stuff. So we just kind of, I think, I don't know. I mean, I certainly had respect for him, and I, he knew our brand from those early days. Uh,
Hmm.
and we just kind of stayed in touch. And then I'm trying to remember when Parker left Whole Foods. I think it was 2021 or 2022. I can't remember. 21, 22, I think. And
Yep.
then, so of course I was bummed because, we had built such a great relationship and I was like, I'm really going to miss working with him. But anyhow, life went on and he left to do something entrepreneurial, something not within CPG. Um, and, but, we stayed in loose touch. We have kids around the same age, like
Yep.
daughters are around the same age, so uh, and then this year, I think he, we're just texting and he was like, oh, I'm kind of like, thinking about going back into CPG. And I thought, it's kind of like threw an idea out there, not thinking that,
He would say, "Yes, I want to work with you."
yeah, I was like, how about joining Team Three Trees? Like, and, we're looking for like a sales leader at the time.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's just, I think it's great. Like it really, he's an incredible addition to our team. He brings so much insight, and because he managed the business for Whole Foods for all of plant based,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, it's just really been awesome, and it's like this is the best kind of partnership or hire or whatever, right? Because you've known each other a long
Yep.
time.
A lot of trust.
Yeah, there's a real like, yeah, it just felt so natural and
Well,
right.
it feels pretty positive when the category manager that you worked with eventually took you national and then decides to join your team. He must be doing something really right, because I'm sure there's so many companies. Like he actually worked for us a little bit at VDriven, kind of part time while he was doing his other activities in between Whole Foods and you. And I felt so honored to work with him. He's just this wealth of knowledge, and he was the guy that we all kind of like worshipped, right? He's like he controlled our destiny.
That's
So
right. That's right. Yeah.
yeah,
Funny.
that was yeah, right. And speaking of him on the sales side, I think that's another area that I think you have a unique perspective in running the business. Is I feel like you really own your business. I feel like while you have used brokers and brand managers in the past, in general, so much was done internally. And I don't know if you want to speak to that and kind of your philosophy there, but I think that's really differentiating in terms of how you operate.
Yeah, I think that, when you're small, it's impossible to have your own dedicated uh, teammate for every function.
Hmm.
And, we honestly, like you're talking about how, yeah, we own so much, but I have so many people to thank as well, including you, Be Driven, like you really were instrumental to helping us get to where we are today. Just basically yeah, like, so it, it's the people, right? Like Parker,
Yeah.
good people, you like, these people that you meet along the way. And not everyone you meet along the way will be a fit, but it's like you can't do it yourself. Like you just can't do it alone. So there's a sort of difference between, I think, just letting other people do everything versus like accepting help from others and recognizing that others
Hmm.
know much more than you. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah. So anyway, thank you, Luke. Actually, really a lot. Uh,
You're welcome. I had so much fun working with you. It was, I, I laugh whenever I think about it because there was a lot of seriousness and there was a lot of fun and there was a lot of challenging energy. What I love about working with you is that there was a place of trust where we could have challenging. We could have not knockdown, drag out arguments, but we could really argue our passionately what we believed and let the best ideas win. And I think there's a lot of I don't know. I like the way you set that up because it isn't an echo chamber around you.
yeah, it's I don't know. I think that's just kind of maybe my personnel or like analytical side, and
Yeah.
I have teammates that are similar too. And so like it's just about getting to the best outcome for the business.
Yeah.
There's nothing personal, and yeah, like,
Nope.
but you have to have respect at the base of it. So yeah, so let's see. The way I think about, yeah, I think there's just this sort of like questioning whether this is the best way. I think that's
Yeah.
like being innovative in a way. It's like, oh, so we've been told to do it this way, or this is the way it's done, and then you ask, is there a better way?
Yeah.
Whether it's like how we how we plan promotions, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
people are like, you have to do four distributor
Oh,
OI.
wise.
And we
Yes.
say,
No, no,
okay.
no, no.
And then we ask, like, do we have to? Should it be
Yeah.
six? Should it be two? Like, what's So we're always like asking these questions, and part of it's like I didn't come with like 20 years of experience, so maybe I come with a fresh pair of eyes. But part of it's just sort of like we're always asking, is there a better way? And I think that's what makes a difference. So then, when we work with brokers, we're like, okay, is this the best way? Is there a better way? And which I'm sure drove a lot of people crazy, but I think that's kind of naturally how we ended up. Like we're just much more in that way, more hands-on, right? We're not just like taking things from
Yeah.
others.
Yeah. No, and for me, I learned and I teach brands today that we need to own our business. We have to own it. We cannot abdicate our business to anyone outside of our organization, right? So
Yeah,
that's what hallmark of Three Trees and your leadership is, where we can own the relationship with the buyers. We're going to like, and if we need to get someone involved to help make that connection, great. But otherwise, we're doing it, and that way, if we win or fail, it's us, right? It's
yeah,
it
yeah. No,
it
you were
is what
right
it
there with
is.
me. I remember we were like, it was like right before pandemic, right? It was like January of 2020. And
Yep.
you and I were like, okay, what should we do? Because we started working together in 2019, and it's like,
Yep.
well, we have these brokers, what should we do? And then, I think we kind of both like talked each other into like trying it out, trying a different way. And then we're like, let's go visit these stores ourselves.
And we did. I remember, I think we were visiting Rouse's at the time when we had that
Yes.
discussion. I think you're driving me back to the airport, and it was like, I think we can do this, Jenny. I don't think we need to have these brokers. I think we can own it. And then you had Aubrey, and then brought in Audrey, and
Right.
the dream team at the time, right? It just killed it.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah.
to your leadership.
Well, we did it together, and it's amazing what has carried forward. And I'm curious, the other area too that I think that you've always um, I think you're best in class in that top, like, the 99.5th percentile or 99.5 percentile. I think that is also data. Early on, you were using data to understand your business and figure out ways to really leverage data to figure out where to focus and how to develop strategy. And I'm curious if that's still a hallmark of how you operate.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's just sort of, I think, in our DNA. And that might just be, again, sort of my background with, I don't know, I majored in economics and then I went to business school. I worked in management consulting as my first job out of college. So it's just kind of always part of how I approach things. And then I tended to, also enjoy people who, like valued that approach too. And
Mm,
so early on, a lot of our teammates are very analytical.
yeah,
Yeah, so we look at data to decide like, okay, how did that promotion go? Where are we performing better? What SKUs doing better? And of course, we do subscribe to spins, so we were
hmm,
for our size paying like we're indexing higher on our spin spend.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, which makes sense because as long as you're able to use it to make good
Mhm.
decisions. and
Yeah.
and yeah, and I think when you brought in Audrey, like her ability to slice and dice that data, and
Mhm.
even like building up the forecast from the bottom. I mean, from
Mhm.
bottoms up. Like we
Yeah.
knew every single account, what every account should be doing, and we had those 3 hour deep dives monthly where we dig into the business, and it was just, these are like, for me and how I operate is like, these are the core. This is what we do for like a company above $5 million. This is how you run it in
Mhm.
volume, and it's best in class. And so I feel like in so many ways, you and I working together, we kind of figured out like what was the best way to do this and the most efficient through a lot of our intense discussions. So
Yeah,
it,
that's
it,
right.
yes. And then one of the things I admire about you was, and going back to Zoe and Forrest, was Zoe and your ability to balance everything in your life, right? We were going through COVID, fast growing company, the challenges that came with a fast growing company, and then you're pregnant, giving birth, you're living in Taiwan and the United States. It, I mean, in terms of balance, is there such a thing? Is it achievable? Um,
Ugh. Honestly, I feel like everyone like the right thing to say is yes, but honestly, no. Like balance, what balance? There's just like wear and tear. It's like takes a toll on your health and it's
Yeah.
hard. There's so many hours in a day. Honestly, there are many days. Most days, I don't feel like I'm doing the best I could in either domain, right? Like I rush to work, I'm late to work. I rush home, I'm late. Like she's always the last one getting picked up. Yeah, it's really tough. I don't know that it's for everyone, to be honest. Of course, I'm
Hmm.
really proud of like Three Trees. I'm really really happy that I have my children, and
Yeah.
but it's just rough. Being a working parent is hard. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think having people around you that understand and can support you is critical.
It's really critical. I don't know about you, but I've learned that at least for my life, it wasn't about a life of being easy and relaxing and retiring young and being at a beach. It's like the struggle is how we grow, and how in a way it's like, I think the struggle is part of the point of life. I don't know if that makes sense, because like the things you deal with today, you probably couldn't have dealt with 5 years ago, but it's like you're constantly getting stronger through this struggle, right? Your metal is being brandished through this. Does that resonate?
I think so. I think so. You kind of don't know sometimes your limits until you push it. But yeah,
Yeah,
it is important though to make sure you don't burn out because that I think is very real also.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And how do you avoid burnout
Oof.
if you have if you maybe you're
I know.
burned out?
No, seriously. It's sort of like I think these things like ebbs and flows, right? I don't know. I have to say there's just like so much grit and kind of like how I started, right? Like one foot in front of the other. And if you
Yeah,
could see the length of the road ahead, you probably
yeah.
like stop right there and be like, no, no, I'm not doing this, right? But you can't
No,
see it, so you
yeah.
just you just keep
No,
going.
I'm with you. What you just said, I've heard this theme over and over again. And if you remember, I used to work with Boo Foods years ago
Uh-huh.
as well, and that was Laura Cattleman, and I remember her saying because she had been through a period that was horrific, beyond anything I could ever imagine a brand going through. And she says, as long as I could see the next step in front of me, I knew I was good. I just took the next step. I didn't need to see the end, right? I
Right.
just need to know I could keep on going,
Yeah.
and that was good enough. And as long as I could see that, great. And I think that you definitely can see the next step. And speaking of next steps for you, like I feel like there's like three trees I see almost everywhere in natural today. Is there a place for three trees in conventional and beyond?
It's been my thesis from day one that plant-based is getting more and more mainstream,
Yeah.
and when that happens, yes, like there's definitely opportunities in conventional, and there's room for more niches and segmentation and
Mm-hmm.
so on. So I think yes, there is a place for us in conventional. I'm not sure if it's like right now, to be honest, like
Mm-hmm.
in the amount of, I guess, the amount of nuts, organic nuts that we use in our product, like it just has to be a certain price point for it to make sense. And again,
Yeah.
we're not like we don't have investor money. We're not spending other people's money, right? So like it has to
Yeah.
be profitable, it has to make sense. And so our
Yeah.
price point has to be a certain like at a certain price point. And then I'm not sure that it makes as much sense in some conventional accounts. But we are already in some conventional accounts and doing quite all right. We've been in them
Mm-hmm.
staying. So yeah, I think we'll get there. Just I always use yogurt as an analogy. My old Wallaby yogurt world where we had the Yoplait and the Dannons, then we have the Sony Fields and the Wallabies, and then we have like the Greek, the really like nutrient dense and the Eleanos,
Mm-hmm.
the Chobanis, like so. If you look at the price per cup of yogurt, like in real dollar terms, it has gone up, right? So people have decided to trade up and spend more for this category. So that's my thesis. And it
Okay.
takes time, it really people's habits and things take time. It's my hope that by us staying so true to our mission
Yeah.
and not compromising on quality, that over time consumers will recognize that and just really trust our
Mm-hmm.
brand. That like that trust in the brand. So that makes you like, yeah, I think that's the most important thing, right? That now
Yeah.
we're building a brand, not just like selling almond milk, and that will give us give us license to go into more
Mm-hmm.
channels, go into more product categories, or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think arguably Three Trees is the most trusted brand, at least in natural, where it's available today in the market. I mean, because you've been so true to that. No natural flavors, for example, like that. I'm curious, was there ever a temptation to use natural flavors? Did that ever come up?
Yeah, when we think about again, like doing certain, right, it limits us again, right? Like when we're
Yeah.
writing certain products, it's like, oh well, you can't do a fruit flavored thing without natural flavors, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
Fruit flavors naturally, the flavor profile just drops off after like 30 days,
Mm-hmm.
20, 30 days. So yeah, so you'll see, so that's would be like not available to us. Has it been a temptation? Yes, but we've managed to,
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't need it.
way. Yeah.
That's beautiful. But part of this podcast also is talking about how we can improve our supply chain and talking about ideas. And we have a few minutes left, and I'm curious. Obviously, you've been working, thinking about the distribution side. You worked with all the national distributors, some regional ones. You mentioned Albert's, like a more of a produce focused one. And I'm curious your thoughts and on distribution for retail brands in America today? And is it getting better? Is it easier? Is it working? Any no, no.
Ooh, this is a tough question right here.
Yeah, right. We'll walk the line. We'll walk the line.
Okay.
And by the way, part of it too is we've had like the president of Unify Fresh on this podcast too, right?
Mhm.
We've talked about there's challenges, and I'll just maybe open it up. Distributors today, um, even looking at Unify Financials, which is a public company, do not make money selling product to their biggest customers. They lose money on that, and they have to cost ship back to the manufacturer. That's
Right.
market, but there's like a lack of transparency that some brands talk about that can be challenging in order to budget, especially as a brand that's not VC backed. So maybe with that setup could help help people feel more
Yeah, no, I
comfortable.
mean, I think you've said it all right there. Basically, you know, um, let's see. A few things I'll say is I am just really grateful to like, the independent, like the rainbow grocers, the co-ops, and the
Hmm.
independent retailers. I'm also really grateful to like the dairy delivery, which is our
Yes.
full distributor,
Yep.
right? Like you don't go from your commercial kitchen, your refrigerated van to UNFI, like just
Hopefully
right.
not. Hopefully not.
Unless you have a lot of
Yeah.
money. Again, unless you have a lot
Yeah.
of money.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, so I'm just honestly like they are what drives innovation in the category. And I think
Hmm.
they're better for consumers. I think this is not going to be popular. We may have to edit this out.
Be wild, Jenny.
Few. But I think that there's a real problem with VCs investing in natural foods. It's different if they are,
Hmm.
I don't know, doing lab grown meats or printed,
Yeah.
proteins or whatever. Like that is
It's a tech
technology.
play.
And
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think that requires a big upfront capital investment in R&D and production and so on. But not when it comes to like food that, is kind of basic,
Yeah.
wholesome, natural foods.
Yeah.
So, because what happens is, yeah, like you said right there, right? These big national distributors, they don't make money from the core of their business, from their mission, which is to
Yeah.
bring food from point A to point B, right?
Yes. Yes.
Instead, it's like through other means, and it is the manufacturers, the brands that get squeezed.
Hmm.
So if you don't have the money from VCs, how are you going to do this? I mean,
Right.
what we've done honestly is quite Herculean. Like there's just
Yeah.
it's so hard.
It is. I mean, arguably one of the hardest things you could ever do in a human endeavor in America today.
Yeah,
Yes.
don't recommend it.
No.
Um, I mean, but it's like this is not how it should be. In the end, it's not the best thing for the consumer, right?
Yeah.
Because your consumers aren't necessarily getting presented with the highest quality food products or the best or tastiest or whatever that metric might be.
Hmm.
I mean, in every category practically now, right? Clothing, cars, the music you listen to, whatever. I think there's
Hmm.
a lot of it's just like we choose from a set of what investors, private equity or
Yep.
VC put in front of us, right? You're not going to go seek out some brand that you how are you going to even find out about them, right? You go shop at your local grocery store and you see what's on the shelf and you choose from amongst that set and you choose the best you think there is. Now, if they're all backed by the same investors, well, that's not really much choice then, right? And the problem is,
Right.
if you don't have like people that care about like their mission, they started a business, they want to put this product out there, they care about the product, then it's, instead it's people, if businesses are run by, hired professionals to deliver profit to investors and returns, then you're not going to get the best quality product. You're not going to have the best, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
for consumers.
Yeah.
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 So,
And so like you doing like you're the unicorn if you think about it. The unicorns are often described as the VC-backed companies that have the major exit. I think you're the real unicorn, and right that been able to navigate this space that really is nearly impossible to do unless you have VC money, and some of that has to do with the way it's set up, right? And when you're competing against so many with your key competitor, right? And
yeah,
all the competitors in this space for the most part, either large companies or VC backed, and you're trying to compete against that.
yeah,
It's like How are you
Every,
supposed to do that?
I know. I'll tell you, and the verdict's still out, but yeah, every brand that's national in our category, there's none that's independent, just us.
Yep. Yep.
Nobody. It's just
Yeah.
so hard. And so, people have like $30 million. I have my personal life savings. Like it's uh it's really hard. Yeah, the sales and marketing spend, and that's why I say like, products, brands are buying shelf space essentially
Yeah.
one way or the
Yep.
other. And so that'll
Yeah.
be the best thing for the consumer. But that's just kind of maybe how our capitalism has matured and evolved.
For the moment, and it's always changing, but it's a good, it's a really good point because you're in a way it feels a little like we don't get the best products to market, right? And and that's, unless you are willing to do whatever like the Herculean lift you've done, it's like then you can do it, but it's very trying. I think there is change coming in our space. I think it's, I think it's going to happen slowly. I think the number one thing I'm hopeful for is more transparency for younger brands. Like most younger brands sign up and they read the contracts from Unify and KeHE and they think, oh, this fine, let's just do it. And then they get, that first check and they have the 80% of their first check as a deduction they didn't expect, right? And I
Yeah.
think that at the very least, let's just start planning, like make that more accessible, like what
Yeah.
that'll look like, so people can at least build that into their pricing, and then we can see, does it all make sense? And then if it doesn't, we can try a different path. But I think the problem nowadays is people are often developing a product at a price point they think that they can make money at when they really can't, and that's the challenge.
Yeah.
And then you need the VC drug, which
Right.
which makes sense in a lot of situations, but not all.
Yeah, yeah, it can. I just think, a lot of, I think entrepreneurs, they, start a business because yeah, they feel passionately about the product or service, and they have a vision and they care and they want to be their own boss, right?
Yeah.
And when you take investor money, you kind of lose all of that.
Yeah, you do.
It's
You
no
whether
longer
you
about
like
that.
whether
Yeah.
you think you do or not, you have a boss, right?
Yes.
And yeah, no, that's it. No, yeah, thank you for. I appreciate your transparency and being, you sharing your raw thoughts about this, because I agree with you wholeheartedly. And as you say them, I hear them from a woman who's been through, a special form of hell to get to where you're at, right? It's like, and against insurmountable odds, that somehow you surmount it. So I I think we should close up with that being my theme of like, Jenny, you did it. Like I am, personally, as someone who's been along the ride around with you on this ride, I'm extremely proud to have been on this journey. I'm extremely proud of you and see you as the in a pedestal in a way of like this is the way. Like, wow, look at her. Like if you can, like just a wow, I think is what comes up for me. And
Yeah.
congratulations. I mean, you're
Yeah.
still here. You did it.
Thank you. That's very nice of you. Yeah, there's still a lot of, we still got ambitions and there's still a lot to do. But yeah, I think that we do have a lot to be proud of. The whole team, anyone who's been on the team, anyone who's worked with us, really
Hmm.
thank you to so many people. Yeah,
Yeah, but
no,
it all start.
there's no sugarcoating it. It's just
There's
how it
no.
is.
It's just hard. It's just hard. And then I also, you know, I think I've said it, but I want to be clear. Like it all starts at the top. I mean, all the people that came along were part of a company, or your company, and showed up because they believed in your mission and vision and who you were and what you're trying to accomplish. And so it's, for me personally, it was a total honor. I look back on it and go, it was crazy, but one of the most amazing times of my life. And I'm so proud when I walk into a store and I see three trees, and it's just like, that's wow. Against all odds, this happened. So, um, so
Thank you so much.
yeah, congratulations. Thank you for being my friend. And early on when I started V-Driven, being my client. And I look forward to continuing many years of friendship with you.
Yeah, likewise, Luke. Seriously, thank you. Yeah, be driven.
Okay.
Really do a lot of our growth to be driven.
Thank you. Well, okay. I wish you the best.
Yeah, and thanks for the opportunity to be on this podcast. Probably my
Um,
first podcast.
Really? Oh my gosh. I can't, I'm honored. Okay. Take care, Jenny.
Thank you.